I think one of the topics we wanted to start talking about was like the grading standards or whatnot that's coming out of kind of the different companies, right? And for me, like I think it's important that like I don't really want to talk about BGS because I don't grade with them. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any like real knowledge of, you know, do I think they're grading fair or not or anything like that. So like
Right.
to me, I don't even want to talk about them.
Yeah.
But PSA, BGS, and PSA, SGC, and CSG, I've sent cards to like decent amount here,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had pretty good luck with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand the thick card thing at PSA. Like, why can't a card get higher than an 8? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
It's been tough.
that's weird to me.
So this is what we're talking about here, right? So if you guys
Yeah.
there's down in the link in the description, there'll be a link to the Retro Hoops Facebook group, where we get a lot of cool. There's not a lot of people there. I'd like to try to get that group up a little bit more. So I'll probably start pushing a little bit more here in the next couple weeks. But um, we get a lot of great posts like this. Shout out to my man Brian. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is Brian Basketball. I want to say that's him. If not, I apologize. But anyway, he posted this, right? He said, he bought this mint plus 8.5, and then cracks it and sends it to PSA. Gets a PSA 10, which is like, so the debate is like, okay, well, who got this wrong, right? Because he also sent a Pete Alonso, a CSG 9 that he cracked and submitted and got a PSA 10, right? And so the question is like, okay, who's right here and who's wrong, right?
Right.
And is it and the comment that I made was this is the long-standing debate, right? Anytime somebody grades something with another company other than PSA and it gets a different grade, the question is who's right and who's wrong, right? And you can have a debate about who's right and who's wrong, but I think the main debate is who has the most who is the one that's going to set the standards? Who is setting the standards here? Who
Right.
sets the standards? Does PSA set the standards? Or what is the criteria for the company that we as collectors are going to allow to set the standards? Right?
Well,
Is it who's been around the longest?
I think it goes to that one.
Right. So then is that PSA or is that SGC?
PSA, because that's the one that's been most widely used in PSA and BGS, right? Those are the two that have been most widely used for 30 years, right?
Right.
And up until the last couple years, that was always the case. That's not the case anymore, right? So I think with CSG, right, wasn't the argument people were making or the complaints with the green labels there when they first started grading cards, like they were crushing people on grades.
Oh yeah. That was
a lot of people
an issue.
A lot of people felt like they were like over grading cards. So, I think at the end of the day, I think that, consistency is key, right?
Yes.
And me personally, I've had nothing but a consistent experience with SGC where when I send the cards in, I'm within a half grade pretty much every single time. Like I think there's been maybe 3 cards in 2 or 3 years where they were just so far off that I was like, what the hell? And it ended up I missed something on the card, right? But when I graded with CSG, I waited until they got their new label because I wasn't really a fan of this green thing. But I felt like the cards I sent there got the appropriate grade. And I felt like with the times I've graded with PSA, other than the 2 Frank Thomases I have sitting here, but although I will have to say my daughter found a couple print lines on each of them, and I was like, what the hell? How did you see that?
She's
So
got young eyes.
they're accurately, in my opinion, now they're all accurately graded.
Mhm.
Outside of the 3 Devers cards I have that were like a 9.5, a 9, and a 9 at CSG, they went to a 9, an 8, and an 8 at PSA. If anything, they all should have been 9s, I felt, but whatever.
Mhm.
I knew that they would probably end up 8s because that's just what they do.
Mhm.
But you know, I what I really think out of all this, right, is the majority of the hobby, majority of the space that when they grade cards for the last 30 years have graded with PSA and BGS.
Mhm.
So you get used to what they've set as the standard,
Right.
and now you have, CSG coming on board with Beckett guys, right? And those guys that are at CSG are no slouches by any means. They have
Right.
years of experience grading
Right.
cards. Whoa.
They brought over the top dogs from
Yeah.
Beckett.
So like in SGC, same thing. Like they've I don't know where my voice just went.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Hang on. I think I'm dying.
Well, don't do that on the podcast for now.
I don't know. There we go. I'm back. SGC has been around forever too.
Right.
They've just lacked the market share and exposure of like, hey, we're reliable too.
Right.
And I think they've done, of all of the companies, they've done the best job of like, hi, we're
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
I think from the pandemic, if you
Right.
gave out an award who benefited the most or
Yeah.
who handled the pandemic the right way,
Yeah.
I think SGC would win the sports cards awards
Agreed.
of that.
Yeah,
You
hands down too, right?
I don't know how else you make an argument for anybody else, right?
Right. Right.
Um, but at the end of the day, like we've said 100 times, competition is good. You want competition. You want these other companies to have a resale value that's competitive because that keeps the market strong and
Right.
it gives people options. Like again, 8 weeks, although it's good, it's a lot can happen in 8 weeks.
Oh yeah.
When if you send in 30 cards to flip and they're all football cards, 8 weeks, like 5 of those guys you sent in, their season could be over.
Oh,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? So, unless you plan accordingly and are grading things off season to be ready for that season, you can't take advantage of some guy that pops off or anything. You can't do that unless you're
Mhm.
willing to pay an exorbitant amount of money to get it graded to speed it up at PSA, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and let's face it, most cards aren't worth paying a whole bunch of money to have them graded,
No,
right?
especially
It's
if you're
clear
trying
as
to
day. Most
resell and do
people buy,
volume.
right?
Yeah, if you're trying
But
to do volume, it's not gonna work.
and I still think that SGC is too expensive, So like
Mhm.
I really feel like their price should drop, you know. And again, like I don't know all the ins and outs. I'm not there. I don't make those decisions. Obviously, I'm
Right.
just speaking as JD, the consumer.
Right.
I'd like to see their card grading go down to about $12.
Mhm.
That to
Yeah,
me is
me
a
too,
nice
the
little spot,
consumer. Yeah,
you
from the
know.
consumer side, I'm saying, yeah, me too, right? Because
You know,
that'll put them in a whole different spot.
and at this point, every dollar of resale matters
Mhm.
because, especially if you're trying to take advantage of like the lower end base cards and things like that for people, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to be able to squeeze an extra 5, 6, $7 out of that card and not
Mhm.
have that going to the grading company.
Yeah.
Now, again, you can wish for things all you want,
Right,
but
right.
you know, um,